Good morning, y'all. Brian in Tennessee again. We are in a constant war for our rights and our civil liberties. It began with the battle for our independence, which we won the right to have our rights, which were solidified in the drawing up of the Constitution and the ratification of amendments. And it's carried out through the Supreme Court, whose job it is to determine what laws are actually constitutional and what laws are not constitutional. Recently, the Supreme Court has had to take on a Bruin versus New York, at which point they deemed that the may issue concealed carry schemes, such as in New York, New Jersey, California, are unconstitutional. They violated our Second and 14th Amendment rights. And basically what this meant was that in a may situation, you had to give some reason, some rationale that you should be granted a concealed carry permit. And just a general, well, I need it for personal protection because there are gangs and there are dope dealers and there are criminals all over the damn place, and they've got guns, I might need mine. Didn't qualify. So basically the only people that were able to actually get a concealed carry permit were the ultra elite, rich people. People who could say, well, I have so and such money and such and such influence, and that puts me at great personal risk. Not a problem. There you go. We may issue you, or we may not, and you probably won't. So the Supreme Court again decided that this was unconstitutional. They decided that, the only true test for concealed carry is, do you want to carry concealed? Are you legal to carry a concealed firearm? You're not a convicted felon. You can pass a background check. You get a little bit of training if required by that state. Great. They shall issue you one, not may issue. So New York decided that they were going to snub the Supreme Court and say, okay, not a problem. We shall issue. We're going to double down on your training time. We're going to require that you turn over all of your social media screen names and IDs to law enforcement, who are going to run checks on your social media to determine whether or not you are of proper moral character. Yes, which of course is subjective depending on who's looking at it. So that subjective bullshit doesn't work. Let's see, interviews, 3 personal interviews with character references. If you're married, your spouse has to be interviewed as a character reference for you. There's an in-person interview with law enforcement to determine, again, if you are of the proper moral character to carry a firearm. Now, going a step further, they decided that there's this whole great big wish list of places that are protected, restricted, so you can't carry there. One of those being public transportation. Well, since the vast majority of places like New York City rely almost solely on public transportation, that means if you leave your house, you can't go anywhere unless you're walking. In which case, you have to make sure that there are no government buildings on that road. There are no state buildings on that road. There's just a whole menagerie. And even private businesses, you cannot concealed carry into a private business unless a private business that's open to the public, unless that business posts a sign out front stating that you can carry a concealed firearm on those premises. Complete bullshit. So basically they've still made it, okay, fine, we'll give you a permit. We'll just make it impossible for you to take a fucking gun anywhere. They're just spitting in the face of the Supreme Court. California, of course, jumped right on board with New York and decided that's exactly what they were going to do. Meanwhile, the House actually did, and this should scare the shit out of a lot of people. And a lot of people need to be on the phone with their congressmen, they need to be on the phones with their senators, and they need to be saying, what the fuck are you people doing? The House actually passed an assault weapons ban. Now, maybe you didn't realize that. The House passed an assault weapons ban. AR-15s, AR-10s, anything with a collapsible stock, anything with a removable muzzle, anything with a muzzle or flash device, anything with a removable magazine, anything that has a military styling. So basically, all but one of my firearms just got banned, including a ban on any magazine in capacity of more than 10 rounds. So again, every firearm that I own, save one. Now, that bill was never sent to the House. Or, sorry, to the Senate. It was never sent to the Senate. Passed by the House, never sent to the Senate. Now, why didn't they pass it to the Senate? I can only speculate. My speculation is that, one, in the Senate's current sitting, there is no way in hell that it would pass. One would hope that there is no way in hell that it would pass. So they're waiting for the Senate to get stacked with a few more liberal seats so that they can then send it to the Senate and get it passed through. If they don't send it until then, it doesn't get struck down, so it doesn't have to start all over again. See what I'm saying? So, we need to make sure that we vote properly, and by properly, I mean vote for people who truly are interested in your personal rights, in your constitutional rights. People who are interested in saving this nation, not just amassing more power. Let's remember, midterm elections are coming around. Now, the ATF, so the ATF is kind of screwing around with a few things. So there's, I can't think of the name of the law off the top of my head, and I should have done my homework on it. My bad. National Firearms Act, something like that. But it basically states, one thing that it states is that the government cannot build a firearms database. We are protected from that. So they cannot build a database of this guy has this gun, this gun, this gun, this gun. This guy has this gun, this gun, this gun. This guy has this gun, this gun, this gun. It is unlawful for the United States government to do it. Never mind, the FBI and the ATF have already openly admitted that they have such a database. Now, here's their rationale for how they can, oh, well, see, but we can't use it against people. Because this database that wasn't even designed by the federal government specifically for this purpose. No, this was a design that was already in use by other companies that they purchased. So basically imagine Microsoft Access. All right, the federal government bought it and then put your information into it. Your social security number, your name, your address, your phone number, your every firearm that you own, along with the type, serial number, date of purchase, place of purchase. Imagine that. And the rationale for, oh, we can't use it against you, is because it's not searchable by name. Now, do you know why it's not searchable by name? Do you know how to make it searchable by name? Do you know how easy it is for them to turn this thing against us? You go into settings, then the names column, you hit a little checkbox, and the database is now searchable by name. That's it. That's all it is. And I know because I used to work with databases. I've built databases. I used them to run searches for whatever aspect of training I happen to be dealing with. Who's coming up for a PT test? Who's trained on this vehicle? Who's trained on this firearm? Who's coming due for training? I used a database just like that to generate lists and reports and keep all my stats in line. And they can do the same thing. Never mind, it's against the damn law for them to do it. But what else is against the law? Let's talk about something else that's against the law. Illegal searches and seizures. The ATF, and you can check it out. You don't have to take my word for it. Look all over the internet. There are videos popping up everywhere. ATF agents showing up, knocking on people's doors with a complete list of every firearm in your house. They're there with your local law enforcement in tow, requesting to see, we just need to see and inspect these firearms real quick. Oh, by the way, no, we don't have a warrant, but, and here's where they're really assholes, if we have to get a warrant and come back, your firearms and you are going to be coming with us. No, I'm not here to take your firearms unless you don't let me in your house. Unless you don't let me inspect your firearms. And then I'm going to come back. And I'm not going to be nice this time. Check out the videos. Do your searches. And by the way, yes, you do have the right, when the ATF shows up at your door, to please do it respectfully, but tell them to go fuck off. They don't have a warrant and they're trespassing. And yes, that is legal. No, I'm not a lawyer, but ask any lawyer. Check the internet. You'll see. So the ATF is also, and again, waiting for after midterm elections and waiting for those new seats to be filled come December. They have apparently let a memo leak that, remember all those pistol braces everybody owns? You know, the ones that are not NFA items? Yeah, they're gonna try and make them NFA items. Memo leaked about a grace period to register your pistol braces, to register the weapons with your pistol braces. Now, along with this, you actually have to send in photographs of the brace and of the weapon that the brace has been attached to, along with serial numbers and all this other shit for the firearm. All right? Now, let's bear in mind, things like AR pistols and AK pistols, they're not NFA items. They don't fall under the National Firearms Act. You don't have to register them. You don't have to get a tax stamp for them. Okay? But that's what the NFA wants to do. Why? Because they don't want you to do it. Because then you own an illegal firearm. You went from law-abiding citizen to felon, and they can walk into your house, they can seize your firearms, and they can take your ass to jail. Gotta love the fucking government, don't you? So, the ATF is also, every year, your local FFL, your firearms dealers, they get inspected by the ATF. The ATF comes in, checks the records, makes sure they're doing what they need to do, yada, 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 yada. Well, so not everybody, when you run a background check, not everybody enters these by computer or digitally scans them in a computer. A lot of these guys, and especially with the older ones before the computerized versions were available, they just kept them on paper. Of course, bigger than this, but they kept them on paper. They still had paper copies, like they're supposed to, but that doesn't give the NFA, the ATF, direct access. So what these ATF agents are doing, and again, it's not just me talking, it's not, conspiracy theories or us. No, these guys have been documented. They have been photographed and videotaped. These ATF agents are, during the course of their inspections, pulling out their cell phones, using a scanning app on their cell phones, and scanning these paper documents so that they can be uploaded into the database that they're not supposed to have to begin with. And these politicians want to keep telling me, oh no, we're not coming after your guns. Yes, you are, you sorry bastard. You expect me to believe you? Come on. Come on. So, there are some good things going on, though. Those are all bad. And there's more badness coming down the road, and there are things that have been kicked by the Supreme Court down to the lower courts, and the lower courts don't want to deal with it, or they're dealing with it in the wrong way. But when the Supreme Court kicked down in Bruin versus the state of New York, their guidance for how to properly deal with a Second Amendment issue is very simple. It's very simple. It's not the old two-step approach, which is you determine the rights of the individual, the preference of the people. Yeah, we'll go with the people, right? We'll lean towards the people. Oh, people are scared of AR-15s. So fucking what? I still have the right to own one. That's how bans get started. So the guidance is, Second Amendment cases need to be judged based on text and history. Okay? So what is the text of the Second Amendment? The text of the Second Amendment is very, very simple. In the militia of the people, necessary, yada, 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 yada. The rights of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. It doesn't say anything at all about age limitations. It doesn't say anything at all about firearm limitations. It doesn't say 10-round magazines. It doesn't say no AR-15s. It doesn't say only single-shot rifles. It doesn't say any of that shit. What it says is the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Straight up, point blank, period, that's all. Word for word, that's what it says. Now, history. Not when New York has a history of having a ban on concealed carries. Oh, we have a history of bans on machine guns since 1936. I don't give a shit. What they do give a shit about is history at the time of the ratification of the Second Amendment. We're going all the way back, 1791. what was going on in this nation, what led to the writing of the Second Amendment, what led to its ratification. I'll give you a hint. We just had to fight for our independence. And it was all hands on deck, by God. We're not just talking about 26 to 37-year-olds. We're not just talking about 18 to 20-year-olds. We're talking about if you were big enough to hold a gun, my God, you had a gun in your hand and you're repelling the enemy. And that's it. There were no limitations put on what kind of firearm you can carry. There was no, well, you can walk down the street with a shotgun, but you can't walk down the street with a rifle. There was no, you can only have 2 pistols at a time. There was nothing. There was nothing. So according to the Supreme Court, that is how you decide a Second Amendment case. Text, history. Now, that borne in mind, there have been some good things based on text and history here lately. Texas, of course, signed into constitutional carry, just like a lot of other states did. However, a federal judge in Texas decided that if the Constitution and if the laws of this country and of a state envelop 18 to 20-year-olds, okay, they apply to them because they're adults, that means the Constitution in a whole applies to 18 and 20-year-olds. And after all, and the judge stated this, the framers did not write an age restriction into the Second Amendment. Now, there are several other laws where age restrictions were very distinctly placed because they felt they were necessary, but they didn't feel like it was necessary in the Second Amendment. So, in Texas, under Texas constitutional carry, 18 to 20-year-olds are legal to carry a firearm. And that's according to a federal judge. And that's good shit. Really is. Hey, if you're an adult, 18 to 20, then you're an adult. And if you're not, then you're not. Colorado. Now, Colorado has had long-standing, well, not long-standing, but at any rate, Colorado assault weapons ban and magazine ban. They tried to do it in Colorado. Again, a judge declared under the Supreme Court's decision, New York v. Bruin. Constitution, Second Amendment, they do not say anything about assault weapons. They don't say shit about AR-15s. They don't say anything about, magazine-fed shotguns. They don't say anything about 10-round magazines. So there shall be no assault weapons ban here in Colorado. No magazine ban. Go fish. Judge Benitez, St. Benitez, as he's known in the 2A community, and particularly in California, where he resides, he has made a decision on California's assault weapons ban in the past. He has already judged it unconstitutional. But he stayed his own decision. And that's where these judges need to grow some balls. Okay? If you make a decision, stand behind your decision. Judge Benitez, I respect the decision that you made, but you only half-assed made it. All right? So he already declared that the weapons ban was unconstitutional. He already declared magazine bans were unconstitutional. Still, it got sent back up the chain, and it's been sent back down the chain, and he's back to, look, it ain't going to fly. Okay? And California's little scheme, just like they jumped on New York's heels of, well, that's fine, we'll give you a license, but you can't carry it anywhere. Judge put stop that shit too. Ha ha. The ATF's new rule, which took effect September 1st, on frames and receivers. So 80% of kits were deemed NFA items. Now, a judge in Texas has deemed that, of course, several different manufacturers in Texas sued over this, and a lot of other people around the nation are also suing over this. But the one in Texas, only one plaintiff managed to get his shit straight enough for the judge, who declared that no, the ATF doesn't get to redefine what a receiver is. And an 80% receiver, whether it comes in a kit or not, in the state that the purchaser buys it, it is not a receiver. Straight up. You cannot put parts in it. You cannot put this thing into action, firing rounds downrange. You can't do it. So as it is designed, as it is built, it is not a receiver, and the ATF, shame on you, you don't get to make that distinction, you don't get to make that ruling, you don't get to change definitions because it doesn't fit what you want it to fit. On the other hand, that same judge declared that while it is fine for that manufacturer to make these not firearms, you still have to get a background check to buy one. And if you don't, it's not legal to purchase it. So we need to work out that disconnect there so that people can actually walk into firearm stores and buy these kits without having to go through a lot of bullshit. Everybody's on, all the criminals are using all these ghost guns. Ghost guns. Yeah, scary thing. Let me tell you something. Nobody's going out buying an 80% receiver kit, milling out, taking the hours to properly mill out this receiver, to build and place parts into this receiver, to turn this thing into a firearm so that they can go knock over a fucking 7-Eleven. It ain't happening. You understand? You are misleading the public, and you need to knock the shit off. Better still, you who are out there listening to me need to vote these motherfuckers out of office. They don't belong there. They're entirely too stupid for the job, and they do not have your interests and your rights at heart. They're only interested in grabbing power and keeping power, and that's why they don't want you to have firearms. How do you enslave a people? You disarm them first. But there are people out there that are fighting for us and people that are helping to keep us informed. A lot of this stuff, to be honest, such as, the ATF and their whole pistol brace bullshit, your representatives, your state representatives, may not even know about it. It's not like the ATF checks in with them when they decide to do dumb shit. It's not like they check in with them when they decide to change a rule, when they decide to veer to the left midstream. They don't check in with nobody. So make sure that your representatives, make sure that your senators and your congressmen know about these things. Contact them. Call them out on it. Say, hey, what are you doing about it? Hey, why don't you hook up with somebody like Firearms Policy Coalition, Gun Owners of America. These are guys who are out there not only talking about change and talking about protecting rights. These are guys who are actually going through the acts of suing the ATF. They're filing lawsuits against the ATF. They're filing lawsuits against the federal government. They're out there actively fighting for your rights. So the best thing that you can do if you want to protect your rights, if you want to protect your right to protect yourself and your families and your community, is to help them to fight for your rights. And keep up with what's going on in the world. There is a lot going on out there, a whole lot. And if you think you're going to hear about it from social media, if you think the news outlets are going to tell you what's going on, they're fucking not, because it's not in their best interest. It's just not. It's not in their interest. Now, there are a lot of guys that, if you want more information about the things that I'm talking about, and you want to hear what's really going on, the whole long and short, the ugly truth of it, hook up with guys like, here on YouTube, Mr. Guns and Gear, the Armed Scholar, huge source of information, really in-depth, and, Coleon Noir. He's an actual attorney. So you don't have to take my word for it. Armed Scholar. And these are actual attorneys. People who know a hell of a lot more than I do and actually understand the legal logistics and acrobatics of it and can really help you to understand about it as well. Folks, get involved. Okay? The government is not going to fight for your rights. The government doesn't give a shit if you have rights. Hell, the fucking head retard in charge stood right in front of the cameras. And it's not rhetoric. I heard him say it. I heard him myself say it. The Second Amendment, like the rest of your constitutional rights, are not guaranteed. My constitutional rights are not guaranteed? Are you shitting me? The supposed president of the United States just stood there and said that your constitutional rights are not guaranteed. And he's right, because they're not. Unless you get off your ass and get these politicians off their asses and you fight. You fight for what your forefathers earned for you. You fight for what my father, my grandfather, my uncle fought to preserve for you. And for what I fought so that you could keep. Don't let these bastards take it away. Not without a hell of a fight. And please, like, subscribe, comment below. Until next time, when maybe I won't be so pissed off.